Daf Yomi, Tractate Bava Batra, page 144b, top of the page, starting with a new Mishnah. Achin hashutvin shenafal echad mehen le'amanus nafal le'emtza chalav nitrape mishelo atzmo. With regard to brothers who were also partners, and it occurred that one of them was summoned to public service, which is assessed per family, he was summoned from the middle, meaning that the profits or expenses of his service are divided among them. If one of the brothers became sick and sought treatment, the cost of the treatment is paid from his own resources. The Gemara says, Tana, the sages taught, Hai umanus, the umanus hamelech, Tanu Rabbanon echad bin achin sheminuhu, Gabe o polmostus, imach mas achin imach mas atzmei latzmei. The sages taught that the service mentioned in the Mishnah is referring to a forced imperial service. But if one of the brothers engaged in a trade of his own volition, the profits are his alone. The sages taught in a Brayta to Sefta 10.5, in the case of one of the brothers who was appointed as a tax collector or a military commander, which is a polmustus, a position with the potential for profit, if he was appointed on account of all the brothers, as the procedure was to impress a representative from each family for this purpose, any profit accrues to all the brothers. If he was appointed on account of himself, the profit accrues to himself. The Gemara asks, but isn't it obvious that if he was appointed on account of all the brothers, then the profit accrues to all the brothers? The Gemara responds, no, it is necessary to say this halacha in a case where the brother appointed was a sharper, meaning he was more capable than the other brothers, lest you say that his sharpness caused him to be selected for the position, and he should receive all the profits. The Brayta teaches us that his talent notwithstanding, since he was selected as representative of the family, the profit accrues to all the brothers. The sages taught, with regard to one of the brothers who took 200 dinars from the common inheritance to support himself when he went to another place to study Torah or to learn a trade, the brothers can say to him, if you are here with us, you are entitled to sustenance along with us. If you are not here with us, you are not entitled to sustenance. Okay, very good. The Gemara asks, but shouldn't they give him his sustenance wherever he is? The Gemara answers, this ruling supports the opinion of Rav Huna. As Rav Huna says, the blessing of the house is in its abundance. This means that the extent to which blessing permeates a home is proportionate to the number of people who live there, and when many people live together, the expenses per capita decrease. The Gemara asks, but shouldn't they give him his sustenance according to the blessing of the house, meaning the expenses he would incur even if he were in the house? The Gemara responds, indeed, they're required to provide for those expenses that he would incur in any event. כדרבי חנינא, דאמר רבי חנינא, הכל בידי שמיים חוץ מצינים ופחים. שנאמר, צינים ופחים בדרך עיקש, שוימה נפשו ירחק מהם. The Mishnah teaches, if one of the brothers became sick and sought treatment, the cost of the treatment is paid from his own resources. Ravin sent a ruling in the name of Rabbi Elah that they taught this only in a case where he became ill through negligence, but if he became ill through circumstances beyond his control, the cost of the treatment is paid from the middle, meaning from the common inheritance. The Gemara asks, what are the circumstances in which it is considered negligence? This is in accordance with the statement of Rabbi Hanina. As Rabbi Hanina says, all occurrences that befall man are in the hand of heaven, except for colds and obstacles, from which one is able to protect himself. I don't know. Colds come to everybody, basically. It's hard to say. It seems like this is also from Shemayim. I don't know if I agree with all this. From which he's able to protect himself. As it is stated, colds and snares are on the path of the crooked. He who guards his soul shall keep far from them. Proverbs 22, verse 5. That's the end of that. Okay, new Mishnah. Ha'ach and shosam miktosim shoish vinus. B'chayav hazar l'shoish vinus. Chazor emsa she'ashoish vinus nigbais bebeis din. אבל השולח לחברו כדי יין וכדי שמן אין נגבין בבית דין מפני שהן גמילוס חסודים. It was common practice for friends of a groom to give him gifts in order to help cover the expenses of the wedding feast. These gifts are known as gifts of groomsmen and would be reciprocated in turn. While the groom and the groomsman were at times the recipient and the giver of the gifts, respectively, the gifts were at times provided by the father of the groomsman and received by the father of the groom. In the case of brothers, some of whom brought gifts of groomsmen in their father's lifetime, which were provided by their father, when the gifts of groomsmen are reciprocated after the father's death, when one of the brothers gets married, they are reciprocated to the middle, meaning that the gift is divided among their brothers. This is because gifts of groomsmen are legal debt owed to the father, collectible in court. But with regard to one who sends his friends jugs of wine or jugs of oil, a reciprocal gift is not collectible in court because they are considered acts of kindness. Gemara, the Talmud says, Akti Gemara, Raminu Shalach, Uraminu. I will ask you a contradiction. Shalach la'aviv shesh vinus. Keshehu chazer, chazeros lo yin shalach la'aviv shesh vinus. Shehi chazeros min ha'emsa, Rabbi Asi, Rabbi Yochanan, ki tenan nami mas nisan nishtalcho le'aviv tenan. Then the Gemara raises a contradiction between the Mishnah's ruling that the gifts of groomsmen are reciprocated to the middle, and the first clause of the Braise. A father sent his son with gifts of groomsmen when they are reciprocated when that son gets married. They are reciprocated to that son. If his father was sent gifts of groomsmen for the wedding of one of his sons, when they are reciprocated from the father's estate, they are reciprocated from the middle, meaning the cost of the gift is divided among the brothers. Rabbi Asi says that Rabbi Yochanan says, when we learned the Mishnah as well, we learned it as teaching the halacha with regard to gifts of groomsmen that were sent to the father for the wedding of one of his sons, not with regard to gifts of groomsmen sent by the father. V'ha'achin shasu miktason. V'ha'achin shasu miktason shosh vinus. Shosh vinut. Shosh vinus. Shosh vinut. I was just saying in two different accents. Shosh vinus. Katani. Taniya miktason. V'ha'chazor shosh vinus. Katani. The Gemara objects, but the Mishnah teaches the halacha with regard to brothers, some of whom brought gifts of groomsmen, The Gemara responds, amend the text of the Mishnah and teach that it is saying that with regard to brothers, to some of whom gifts of groomsmen were brought. The Gemara objects, but the Mishnah explicitly teaches the halacha if the gifts of the groomsmen are reciprocated. The Gemara responds, this is what the Mishnah is saying. When it is collected from the brothers in return, it is collected from the middle. Rav Asiyom Marloi Kashya, Kan Bistam, Kan Befesh, Keditane, Shlach Loi Aviv Shosh Vinus, Keshihi Choseres Loi. Shlach Aviv Shosh Vinus Tam, Keshihi Choseres Loi. Vasi says, even in the text of the Mishnah, even if the text of the Mishnah is not amended, it is not difficult and can be reconciled with the Braise. Here in the Mishnah is referring to where the father sent gifts of groomsmen without specifying which son should be ascribed credit for bringing the gifts. There in the Braise is referring to where the father specified that the credit for the gifts of groomsmen should be ascribed to a specific son who receives gifts in return, as it is taught in another Braise. If his father sent gifts of groomsmen on his, meaning the son's behalf, then when the gift is reciprocated, it is reciprocated to him, meaning to that specific son. If his father sent gifts of groomsmen without specification, then when the gift is reciprocated, it is reciprocated to the middle. Ushmula Omal Hachabiyav Maskinan Shainanoita Beroi. And Shmuel says, here in the Mishnah, we are dealing with a man whose married brother died childless. The son who brought the gifts of groomsmen died childless. His brother entered into loving marriage with the widow, and the gifts of groomsmen were reciprocated at the wedding of the Yavam. Although the Yavam inherits the property of his brother, since the reciprocal gifts were not extant when his brother died, they do not belong solely to him, rather they are divided among the brothers. This is because the Yavam does not take in inheritance the property due to the deceased, as he does the property of the deceased already possessed. Tanu li shoshvini ve'esmachimoi. The Gemara asks, is it possible to conclude by inference from Shmuel's statement that the other side, meaning a friend who had received gifts of groomsmen from the deceased, is obligated to repay the gifts of groomsmen he received from the deceased? Why should this be so? Let him say, give me my groomsmen, and I will rejoice with him, since the one who gave him the gifts is deceased. He is not obligated to reciprocate. Mi lo tanyo makam shenagu lahachzir kedushin machzirin, makam shenagu sheloi lahachzir ein machzirin. V'amar Rav Yosef bar Abo amar Mar Ukva amar Shmuel lo yishanu ela shemesahi aval meishu ein machzirin. My time yochol elahi shetomar. Oh, it's the middle of a thing, but we'll finish it up. We're finishing up this daf. This daf. Isn't it taught in a Braita to Sefta Psachim 3:1 with regard to similar circumstances in a place where people are accustomed to return the betrothal money when the betrothal man or woman dies, they return it. In a place where the people are accustomed not to return it, they do not return it. And Rav Yosef Barabba says that Marukva says that Shmuel says they taught this only with regard to when the woman dies, in which case one follows a local custom. But if the man dies, all agree that they do not return the money. What is the reason for this? Since she can say, and then we'll continue it on with the next daf, and perhaps we'll just review this just to keep it current.